Hey everybody, we are reading Copper Sun by Sharon Draper, and we are now on chapter 35. Um, Still from Amari's perspective, the last one from Amari's perspective for part 7, um, Dirt and Clay. The next evening, feeling full of energy, the three young travelers headed out with renewed enthusiasm. The forest had turned to deep pine, the tall evergreens casting thin shadows from the moonlight. In the distance, lights from farmhouses flickered. Hushpuppy seems to know he's the hero of the moment, Polly said with a smile as the dog bounded after every unfortunate rabbit or squirrel that crossed their path. But he's too full to catch much now. Amari laughed softly. Tidbit chased the dog merrily. His high spirits returned, and they all seemed to relax as they made their way slowly through the cool, dark night. They crossed another shallow waterway, where the soft river mud soothed their tired feet. For 4 more nights they traveled smoothly, heading ever further away from the plantation of Percival Derby. They had no more huge feasts, but the leftover pieces of cooked rabbit lasted a few days, and roots and tubers were plentiful every time they reached a river. Amari was glad that it was not the rainy season. The small streams they crossed would have been roaring rivers. In addition, Amari figured out a way to catch crayfish in the shallows, the tangy flesh a delicious treat, as they began their seemingly unending nighttime treks. But she was tired of walking, of being uncertain, and of feeling sick all the time. Every muscle in her body cried out for rest. The night was unusually warm, and Amari had broken out in a sweat. She didn't think she could keep this up much longer. She had no way of knowing how far they had gone or how much further they still had to travel. She had nothing to grab onto for support. It reminded her of being on the ship, where it was impossible to determine time or place, just the endless sea. She was fearful also, but she did not want to share her worries with the others. What would happen if they were found? She wiped her brow and tried to think positively, showing brave smiles to Polly and Tidbit. Just as she let herself relax, however, her worst fears became reality. As they walked on, Amari could see nothing but shadows, some lighter than others. The trees, long, slim silhouettes, seemed to guide them most of the time, but sometimes the branches looked like arms with hands of many fingers, ready to attack. And then suddenly the branches of a short, sturdy tree moved. Just as Amari jumped, one branch grabbed her wrist. She cried out and tried to pull her arm free. Polly instantly grasped Tidbit's hand and pulled him into the darkness. Amari screamed and tried to run, but she couldn't get free. Then she heard a voice, full of venom and danger. "Where do you think you're going?" As Amari twisted to escape, she found herself face to face with Clay Derby. "Let me go!" Amari exploded, but Clay held her arm as firmly as the shackles she had once worn as he pulled her close to the trunk of the tree. "I've been looking for you and that white girl you ran off with for a long time now," Clay drawled. "My father would have been proud of me, God rest his soul." "How you find?" Amari asked in furious frustration. "Wasn't hard. You leave footprints the size of a horse." He laughed with disdain, spat on the ground, and pulled a rope from his doublet. He first tied Amari's arms together, then tied her to the tree, pressing himself against her to keep her still. "How you know where to look?" she wanted to know. "Oh, the doctor made up that cock and bull story about highwaymen and seeing you all heading off. But he's a poor excuse for a lie. Everybody went north looking for you, but I figured you might try something stupid like running south." "Why you care?" Amari asked with quiet anger. "Are you a mine, gal?" His leer turned into a confused scowl. "I've missed you, mine," he admitted. "Didn't you miss me a little? I thought you liked me." He touched her face gently. In spite of her fury, Amari was amazed at the plaintive tone in his voice. "Why you not just letting me be?" she asked angrily. Clay leaned over very close to her face. "Because I aim to reclaim what's mine. You hear me, miner?" Amari took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and this time it was her turn to spit. She spat directly in his face. Clay roared and slapped her so hard that her head bounced back against the tree trunk. She felt herself fading into a faint, but she felt victorious. Clay slapped her again, bringing her back to full consciousness. Amari glared at him. From the shadows, Amari heard Hushpuppy growl. "Where's the child?" Amari asked Amari as he looked around. Amari looked at him with narrowed eyes. "Dead," she said emphatically. "I don't think so," Clay replied kindly. "That would save me the trouble of dashing his head against the tree. I followed your footprints, remember?" Amari struggled against the ropes. She had never been so angry. If he hurt Tidbit, she would kill him, she vowed. "And where's the white gal?" Clay asked as he watched her struggle. He seemed to be amused. "She leave us, go north," Amari lied. "You know you're as poor as lie as that doctor." Clay told her as he ran his hand down her arm. I shall enjoy punishing you when we return to Derbyshire Farms. I am master there now, you know. My father died suddenly, not long after you ran off. Master Derby dead? Amari asked with surprise. She wondered if Mrs. Derby had breathed a sigh of relief. Amari lowered her head. Is it wrong to be glad that someone else is dead? She thought. Yes, the doctor said it was his heart, but I believe he was poisoned, Clay said ominously. Amari peered into the darkness to pray that Polly and Tidbit would not try to save her and get caught themselves. Again she heard Hushpuppy growl from the darkness of the woods, quietly but with menace. What happened when we go back? Amari asked, trying to keep Clay talking. Oh, you'll be punished severely. Perhaps a brand on your face and maybe the removal of a finger or toe. I have not yet decided. Amari felt her heart quicken, but she refused to let Clay see that she was scared. Well, I fully intend to teach you the folly of trying to run away from me. But tonight, he said, his voice dropping low, I tend to make up for lost time. I really have missed you, gal. He stroked her leg and Amari kicked at him. Undeterred, Clay put his hand on Amari's other leg. A dusty blonde shadow erupted from the woods at that moment, both hands shakily holding the musket. Polly closed her eyes and squeezed the trigger. The sound was deafening. Amari screamed. Clay sank to the ground with a moan. He be dead? Amari asked fearfully as he crept close to him. Polly, her face showing both terror and surprise, dropped the gun, then fell to her knees and turned Clay over. No, he is not dead, she declared with relief. It's a good thing I'm such a pole shot. I didn't want to hurt him, just frighten him away. Clay's eyes fluttered and he groaned softly. The bullet barely grazed the side of his head. He'll be fully conscious soon. We must hurry. She tore at the knots that held Amari. Amari looked at Polly with gratitude, amazement, and new respect. I did not know you so wild. Polly grinned. I didn't know either. I just knew I had to do something quick and sudden. Then she got down to business. It is his turn to be tied, she suggested. He get loose soon, yes? Amari replied. Probably, Polly replied. We don't have much rope. I'm supposed to be able to undo the knots eventually, but at least we will have some time to get away. He should die, Amari declared, no regret in her voice. Maybe so, but it is not for us to do, Polly replied. They pulled Clay over to the tree and bound him as tightly as they could. We must get out of here quickly, Polly said. Someone may have heard the gunfire. As they backed away from him, he began to stir. He be waking up, Amari whispered frantically. Polly grabbed Clay's knapsack and tossed the gun inside it. We must flee. If he gets loose, he will surely find us and kill us. Maybe not, Amari replied. She pointed to a spot just beyond Clay's thigh where a large rattlesnake slithered toward him. What should we do? Polly whispered. Nothing, Amari replied quietly. Clay opened his eyes and focused slowly on Amari, Polly, and Tidbit, sitting a few feet away from him. A trickle of blood oozed from the wound on his head. He pulled at his restraints. How dare you! He roared as he became more aware of what they had done. He yanked at the ropes. I'll kill you for this! I don't think so, Polly replied. Oh, mark my words, you'll pay for this, he warned viciously as he tugged at the ropes some more. When we get back, I'll throw that boy in his mother's cooking pot and make her watch him die. We not go back, Amari told him clearly. Oh, yes you are, Clay swore as he continued to struggle up the ropes. You can't even tie a decent knot, he crowed triumphantly, freeing one arm. Even if you run, I'll find you and catch you, and I plan to spend the rest of my life making you suffer. The rest of life might not be long, Amari observed quietly. The snake, unmoving, coiled, tense, and ready, only inches from Clay's leg. Clay looked directly at Amari, his face a mask of rage and confusion. I tried to be kind to you, he told her. How can you repay me like this? She looked at him with pity. You just not understand. Angrily, Clay continued to wiggle and struggle with the ropes that held him. Then he turned his head and spotted the snake. He froze. The snake was motionless as well. Amari looked at Polly. Polly looked at Tidbit. They all looked towards the woods. In silent agreement, they hurried away from Clay. All right, and that ends chapter 35. Now, we don't know what is going to happen to Clay. All right, remember this is a swampy area, as we said before. It's very likely that there were all types of snakes there, poisonous snakes. This is the 1700s, and a snake bite at any given time could be dangerous for anybody. And we noticed that when the slave got bit back on in the rice fields, and it was very likely that the mother died. We weren't told that, but it was heavily implied that she wasn't going to make it, or it's very likely that she wouldn't make it. Here's Clay sitting here in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, next to a rattlesnake. So what's going to happen is he gonna move, because you make too many sudden movements, and he was making a lot, disturbing the rattlesnake. You make too many sudden movements, the rattlesnake might attack him and bite him. And then what's gonna happen? Like, he has to make it back. And clearly Clay is by himself. He didn't come with a team of people. Or is he gonna be able to move slowly, slowly, slowly and get away? Now, maybe perhaps he doesn't move at all. The snake doesn't bite him, and he just stays there. But that's gonna take hours. The snake is coiled up, ready to strike. So maybe that gives Amari and Polly and Tidbit enough time to escape. We really don't know yet. But also notice how Clay is confused. Because remember, he's been taught his entire life the way he treated Amari back on the plantation and the way he was treating her right then and there was how you were supposed to treat slaves. Like, slaves and black people didn't have emotions high enough to understand that they were being raped and beaten and things like that. So for him, he's like, yo, I was nice to you. I was kind to you. Why are you leaving? Why are you treating me like this? Totally not understanding that he was forcing himself on Amari. He was abusing her, making her live in fear, terrorizing her. He had no idea. So to him, that's totally alien to him because of the world they lived in. Remember, the doctor can see it. Bill the sailor could see it. Mrs. Derby, Isabel could see it. But for a lot of people at that time, unfortunately, the majority of people at that time, they didn't see it that way. Even Polly, if you remember back when Polly was like, why do you want us not to call you Mina? Like, that's your name. You should be used to it. Even she doesn't fully understand the humiliation, the terror, the horror that Amari has to go through. Like, why should I change my name because I'm property of this other person? Like, that's not how it should be. So, but yeah, so our three heroes, protagonists, get away, but how long is that freedom gonna last? Now we know Clay's on the trail. So that ends that for this chapter. Thanks for reading with us. We'll see you on the next one.